welcome. Have a seat. You've arrived at the second installment of the Historical American Building Survey in California. Gentlemen, you'll notice that the cart in front of you, covered in black cloth. Well, soon that cart will be unveiled, and I don't think you'll like what you find. Well, unfortunately, we will never find out, because we are on a mission to explore the world, that which they tell us is historical and worth exploring in our own backyards. For too long, we have put this aside. For too long have we ignored what shan't be ignored any further. After all, if it's our own government calling attention to it, telling us it's historical, we best heed them, don't you think? Now, where are we? This doesn't look particularly historical, and to that I would agree, despite the occasional Gothic sconce or ornate banister or Ionic column. Yes, it's true those features could be anywhere. I am not an expert in anything except observation, but when you find patterns that reveal themselves to you through observation, eventually you can recognize things sooner than other people who maybe have not spent tens of hundreds of thousands of hours poring over some of the most driest and most boring material on God's green earth. But I do this for you, America. And because I'm fascinated by it. It turns out I'm a dork. Who'd have thought? Except for everyone that probably ever knew me. Well, those fine features were from the Westlake School for Girls dormitory. The only things really too interesting there were the fact that yet again it's accredited to an architect and engineer that there has no other history, which we are assured is in a romantic Southern California regional version of the Spanish colonial revival style, which reflected an extraordinary awareness of the ability of architecture to positively shape the educational environment. Really a bunch of nonsense, really. Somebody getting a little flowery, and that would be in LA. But more curious to me is the fact that our two mystery architects didn't begin constructing this until 1928, and it wasn't finished until 1931. And you recall that this survey was taking place in 1933. So the campus has been around for 5 years, and yet they're going to feature it in the Historical American Building Survey. It wasn't even 50 years old, but the day it was, in 1982, they made it part of the historical registry. I find it hilarious that it's in this survey. It's weird. It's like they either knew it was going to be historical somehow, or maybe they kind of messed up because it was already really old. I don't know. I think about that era, and they couldn't even comprehend the internet. Our grandparents couldn't even comprehend the internet. I remember when there was no internet. At least no houses had it. I remember when dial-up started to be a thing. So in these people's mind, you have to understand that when they did things like, we're going to have a survey where we're going to chronicle all the little trims and fittings of the old world, they would gather all these photographs and they would put them in a place called the Library of Congress, which would be a physical location that you could go to if you were granted permission for purposes of research. They didn't anticipate that one day it would be digitized and anyone who wanted to be able to access it, along with their notes. So if they're going to set things aside as a white book of inventory of all the things needed to track, lest it blow your cover of the grandest deception of all time, you wouldn't dream that any layman would have access to it. You wouldn't dream that they'd be able to take the time and physically obtain copies of all these pictures. For us to research even a single architect would require going through shelves and shelves and shelves of various books and traveling to various physical locations. It would require that's your job. Someone's going to pay you to do that. And who would do that? That would be a very select few people that would ever have that opportunity, desire, and the ability to even pull it off a good investigation. The chances would seem impossible because they would spread these things out so far. But the people that often set up systems that are later on kicked down to the nephews and the uncles and whoever else, they often don't have the same hunger, drive, skill set, and so things get out of control. And they wouldn't also understand that same tool could be used against them. And in a single afternoon, someone could find out all that there was to know publicly about, let's say, an architect or 50 architects. See, they didn't imagine that we'd have these powers. So if you're telling yourself, well, how could they hold the lie together for this long? Why would they be so obvious about things? Because they didn't think it would ever be all in one place, accessible by just any old person. Because we're more powerful than they tell themselves. Speaking of libraries, this is the Berkeley Public Library. What happened? You'll notice here the same type of ceiling that we've seen in the other libraries and the other college campuses. The construction began in 1929 and continued through the Great Depression, and in 82 was designated a city landmark. It was finished in 1931, and then of course, 2 years later, it's included in the survey. In 1931, not that long ago. Strange time to put things like this on the top of your building. And this almost pagan, godlike, Baphomet type creature. It could be sort of tongue-in-cheek, these Egyptian poses holding books. But I also see how this could actually be doctoring up of a pre-existing, perhaps, mural that was already here. I could see it going both ways. And of course, what I'm doing is recklessly speculating. Now, this is interesting. I think that this is actually one of those tongue-in-cheek, telling you what's going on without you actually seeing it. And again, I have a wild imagination at times, and by no means do I believe that everything I say is absolutely true. I do throw out many ideas. The point of this is to involve as many people as possible, to get as many people as possible thinking about this, learning this together. The invitation is open to all the world to join in on this. I welcome the community. God knows we need it more than ever. But I'll tell you what I see here, and this could, like I said, be nonsense, but I have a suspicion, and there are some theories floating around, and what I believe I'm seeing here in this little tiny logo is sort of a hint. What I see here is water in a vessel, like in a contained, shallow fountain, and you're looking at a cross-section of it, right? Like you're in the water, and this is a shallow water level here. This is just, say, centerpiece of the fountain. From the upper view, you'd be looking down at the fountain, and it would look something like this. So this square right here, this is as if you're looking straight down on a fountain, and this part would be right here. And what is happening is the water, the natural energy that is inside of it, the electromagnetic current that is being charged with, as the motion on these is indicating, swirling, as if there were a torus around the base of this, a torus like this, creating a toroidal field. And as you can see here, that is in fact, architecturally even, what that ring is called. The base of these, volutes, or volt, as in archivolt. And as the ether is pulled upwards, as the toroidal field causes the motion, and the nature of electromagnetism does the rest, and as it travels up the rebar inside of the column, here's the motion of a toroidal field. Once it reaches this here, these rolls are what that field would look like if you were looking at it from a different angle. This indicates the direction in which the energy is coming up to the top of the column and going from there. Sometimes I believe it travels along the veins, the rebar inside these veins, and these act as a sort of a conduit in the way that you'd wire a building. That's all for later. And I'll do a lengthy video explaining some of that stuff. But back to the Berkeley Library. That is what I see being played out here. Water, torus, fountain, arrayed specifically in patterns that create a type of energy vortex in the way that you would arrange the stones in a creek to create a whirlpool. Column, base, ceiling, toroidal field. Boom. Boom. Yes, I did see all of that just in that little address marker or whatever it is. That's just a little glimpse into the window into which I view the world. And hopefully, soon, you will be able to see the world with different eyes as well, and what's hidden in plain sight. This type of talk did not please the Guardians, and they frowned in disapproval. Keep an eye on that one, he said rather clumsily, as the merry group went on their way. What is up with that tree? Looks like it's trying to scare somebody. It is worth mentioning here that I am very well aware that I am a completely ridiculous person. So, save your criticism for someone who gives a bleep. Because I do. This is downtown Oakland. That prominent old world wonder that you see there. That is the Oakland City Hall, built by a nationally prominent architectural firm who won the contest for the commission, like every other good architect has come around to designing every other building on the historical list. It's a competition. Come on inside, Jimmy. You're just gonna love this. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's right here. Of all the Cold Stone Creameries, this one is by far my fit. My God, what happened in here? Now, makes sense to you? These people appear to have been obsessed with energy. Either that, or perhaps these were indicators, like you'd put on a warning label. I don't know. My point is, they have purpose. They had a way of combining art and purpose, the way any master of their craft is able to do. They combine functionality with form in ways that highlight both of them, whereas we are a divided people. Even our brains, they tell us, are divided into two different people. You have the form, you have the function, and rarely are they able to become one. Usually the functions are gaudy, awkward, industrial. However, old world creations have mastered that blend. In the case of, say, this or this, which no doubt have some very acoustical parts to play. I find the detail in this doorknob to be quite fascinating. You wonder what they were looking for here, and here. Yeah, that was just pretty much an excuse for me to draw arrows everywhere. Much of what we've been looking at here is in downtown Oakland, and often a building like this, that's this rundown, I have a hard time sort of analyzing. Partially because it's a nice blend of old world sort of decor. Once you take a jaunt around the back, however, it is kind of another story. I mean, it's, for lack of other words, it looks like total shit. And I don't know if someone's living right here, but if so, our bad, bro. We totally did not mean to tread on you. This is inside the rather suspicious Church of Christ Scientist archive. And you can see immediately you've got the black and white checkered floor of the Masons, the old world carved banister. This is in the ceiling. It's like a drawing. It's so perfect and symmetry. But it's not. It's the ceiling of this auditorium. This was designed by that same fraudulent Revere, as was pointed out to be by a very dear companion in my life. This looks very much like a massive speaker cone. And I do believe that this has much to do with with acoustics, as does this. I believe these churches were used for a different purpose. These houses of healing, it had more to do with the music, the vibration coursing through your body than it did by anything that some dude standing up here would say. One was allegedly designed in 1928-ish, and a very, very elaborate building to be constructed in this time period, is what I think. I'm not sure what the Church of Christ scientist believes. Or perhaps it was, something entirely else that was repurposed as a church and not built by us at all. But that's, just my sort of hot take on things. You don't have to agree with me. Regardless, it's a magnificent structure, and it's very hard to fathom us even building this during the Great Depression, as we're told. It was all such a struggle. But on Sundays, we put aside our differences, the differences between us and lack of any money, and we put that aside and we're able to build this amazingly extravagant structure. And sadly, we have allowed it to fall into disrepair. I'm wondering what this map is. I wish I could see that closer. This is kind of an interesting room. Almost looking like you could fill this with water and do other stuff with it. Like have jello wrestling! The foundation on this one leaves me with some questions, like if this should continue going level. I mean, that just stands out. It's part of some other world that's not here. Striking, beautiful building. We have reached the interior of that old city hall, which literally that's what it's called now, the old city hall. And just look at the steps, the stone, the grandeur that these jerk-offs think that they deserve, these politician scumbags. And this is why sometimes you have cities that are capitals that don't seem to make sense, because the finest buildings they have to take for their own, as that's what they've done here. And yes, this is exactly something that a mayor in the 1920s would carve on his wall. And from the outside, while a lot of this has been re-stuccoed and sort of refinished to look more modern, this remains very non-modern. Looks like a relic from a strange enchanted past. And then you've got these, and what was in here? What was this? It looks so out of place up there. And, oh shoot, dude, Pennsylvania followed us here, bro. And this guy installed a little ticket booth on the side of his house just in case he ever started scalping. Strange little addition to a house. Unless, of course, serves some purpose, right? I mean, the Gabriel Moulin Studios in 1932, the same kind of ceiling with the same kind of symbology. But wait a second, I thought it was just particular to that one school. They were just trying to do like a stylistic thing. Yeah, maybe. But chances are they were built by the same people. The same ideas in mind, the same fast sense of fashion and style. And that would mean not what we would call modern Americans. A little bit of Japanese influence here, looks like. And damn, that's quite a hallway. No, this hallway actually kind of brings more stress into my life. I'm sorry, there's another room inside those studios with an ibex, maybe, and a woman, angel, maybe? And that's hell of a ceiling ornament. This is another room in the studios, and this is just breathtaking. My God, this is so futuristic. I can't believe this even existed. This is fantastic. I love those. I love the ceiling. These couches, what a cool place. That is incredible. And I just, again, have a hard time believing that this was just made for theater. Why would modern Americans do stuff like this, engrave or paint this? We just don't do it. We don't have, oh, there it is. There she is, the Phoenix. Yep, that's your answer. Phoenicians built this, not us. And they didn't die. They just went underground. Right. Another insane room. Here, this is in San Francisco, Paramount Building. And again, you have to ask, was this here first? And they sort of doctored it up to make it more modern? Or did they really feel it was necessary? And I don't know. That's something you're going to have to figure out for you. Let's see, where were we? Does this sound realistic? And I was like, dude, fuck that. And we find ourselves back here in what we're told is the Chamber of Commerce on the right. Here in the poor town with nothing but peasants. Oh yes, Sacramento got the short end of the stick for sure. Hey, que tranza, way? Sacramento, man. There's nothing here, man. Nothing fancy. That's the Chamber of Commerce, way. Yeah, right. Hey, this is the Chamber of Commerce from the other angle, way. You can see, man. Nothing to see here, man. We are just poor Sacramento. Well, I'll be on my way then. You'd be surprised when you find out later. Fancy door, ugly box, abandoned car, elegant setting. This seems to be from a different era than all of this. Like the top is in a time warp or something. Or just the bottom part's been all messed up and muddied up and jacked up. And the top part's been sort of out of their reach. Like a cookie jar on the highest shelf. No matter what the government tried to do, they simply could not lift Sacramento out of the mire that they were in. And gradually, a shadow spread across the land. Yes, it's true. Thus, sadly, is the life of a Sacramento native, and this is the poor, wretched Capitol building. Wait, what? Oh, they didn't tell you. Yeah, yes. No. It's not the government of Sacramento. The officials that have run down hovels. This is where they live and work. You didn't think they actually went outside to those areas, did you? Have you forgotten we live in a system that is designed to keep you down? Designed that way. When it functions correctly, it keeps you down. The two-party system is designed to bludgeon you to death with helplessness. It's not a real thing. What's real are the people in your lives. The family, the friends, the weird Uncle Albert. That's what's important.